Search Your Words, episode 434. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
And Guy's here.
Wow, dude.
Hi, Guy.
Wow.
Hi.
What a just lead dropped intro there.
Guy's our very kind producer that I don't have a fun intro for. I don't have anything.
Last episode, but no.
I could do it. I could do it like jokingly. It could be like, and joined by this guy. You know, that'd be a fun.
And also some chode.
You call me non-viable human.
If anyone would like to submit a fun intro for Guy, please let me know, and we'll do it on the show because I got nothing to lose. You know,
there's gonna be weeks of this in the Discord. Thank you. Thank you for this.
Yes. We'll start a thread. It'll be great.
Guy name thread.
My week. Yeah. I've been trying to find the Space 4X game that is going to grab me.
Yeah, Alpha Centauri.
I've not put time into Alpha Centauri. I was to understand that Alpha Centauri was mostly you on a on a planet colonizing it, not necessarily colonizing space.
That's true. You don't really go into space at all. You're
I want to build a galactic empire kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So I have gone through Master of Orion 2, which is often treated as kind of the great granddaddy perfect predecessor 4X game, and it's fun, but a little dated and a little simplistic.
I prefer to call it Moo 2.
Yeah, I have the Moo 2 launcher, so I'm familiar with Moo. I have
Don't play Master of Orion 3. That's a mistake.
I did not. I've gone through Galactic Civilizations 2 and 3.
I've got 2. I don't have 3.
2 was kind of buggy, didn't run great on kind of modern Windows, had some weird issues. But then also 3 was just a lot cleaner UI, a lot easier for me to tell where things are as a novice. But both games just kind of didn't super grab me. They were fine, but I wasn't in love with them. I tried out Endless Space 2, which I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening in that game. I can't figure it out. I'm too stupid or something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. The UI is so different from other space, because this is the order I played them to.
Yeah.
So I've gone through Master of Orion 2, Galactic Civilizations 2 and 3, and then I tried to go into Endless Space. So I'm now several days into playing Space 4X games. I cannot grok Endless Space 2. I don't know what's happening. I'm confused. There's voiced cutscenes. I don't know what's going on. And then finally, someone in the Discord was like, you should try Stellaris. And I remember playing Stellaris and not liking it. So I said that. And then I was looking at it in my Steam library, and I realized that this doesn't look like what I thought Stellaris was. So I fired up Stellaris, and I did not play Stellaris, for sure. And it's very fun. I think it's going to be the one I stick with for a little while. I think I kind of wanted one that was sort of the most Star Trek-esque.
Yeah.
Because I really like the idea of exploring the galaxy and building my empire and doing diplomacy, but I'm not super interested in space combat.
Yeah.
I don't mind it happening sometimes, but when it does, I don't want it to be tactical. I want to be mostly removed from it, and my units just see each other and then they go at it themselves, you know? Yeah.
You were mentioning in the Discord that something about having to hit intern a bunch of times and then you found games where you didn't.
Yes, so that annoys the shit out of me. And Saturn, you're a Civ fan, so maybe this will sound totally weird to you. But a lot of times I'll set up all of my researches and queue up all of my actions.
Right.
And then I'm just pressing end turn over and over until stuff completes and I can do new things.
Fair, yeah.
And in some of these games, I was doing it for 20 and 30 turns in a row.
Ooh.
And so it was just getting really, in Galactic Civilizations 3, there were times where I was just holding the end turn button for a while. And granted, I know that there are maybe tactical things I could be doing, but it just made it feel really tedious.
Yeah, I hear that.
Stellaris does not have a turn structure. It is real time, and you can pause it whenever you want. So everything just takes a number of seconds.
So that was going to be my question and kind of the lead into it. Sorry to just kind of jump in here, but
no, you're fine.
At what point does it become more of an RTS than a 4X game?
So Stellaris still for me feels really 4X in that there are kind of you've got your colony screen and you don't really have a fleet screen. You know, it sort of has these designated menus that you're going into to do your actions. It still hits the 4Xs, which are where they explore, exterminate, explore again, and then ears. I don't remember what they all are.
Yeah, ears has so many X's in it.
But oh yeah, I was just putting the E at the beginning, wasn't I?
This is like when you forgot how to rhyme.
It was 4 E's. What are they? It's explore, exterminate. What does the 4X stand for? It's help me out
here.
Expand.
Shit.
In ears.
And
so
ears.
I'm still doing very 4X things. Yeah. I'm working on finding new places to colonize, colonizing them, going to the colony screen, setting up buildings for that colony and kind of customizing it, popping back out to my galaxy menu, searching some more. It's still the flow is
explore, expand, exploit, exterminate.
There you go. So I'm still very much doing 4X things, and because it has kind of the SimCity sort of time thing where I can speed it up, slow it down, or just pause it entirely, it doesn't really feel real time because I can just literally pause it whenever I want
and still do things while it's paused.
Yeah. So in practice, it feels more like, there is a turn, but it's always progressing itself. So I don't feel that moment of like, all right, let me progress a bunch of turns. Cool, that's done now. I can do this thing. Also, Stellaris lets me queue up actions. So I can hold shift and kind of like some RTSs, queue up a bunch of different stuff I want a unit to do, and then it just goes and fucking does it for a while.
Which is also what I do in Civ games.
Yeah, so I can queue up all of my stuff to do its thing, and then I can just ultra fast forward and just kind of watch everything unfold. There is also a big giant Star Trek pack for Stellaris.
I saw the
which
pictures you're
very much turns it into like a universe lore accurate Star Trek game.
Nice.
It has voice acting. It had like you can turn on like canon events so that the wars of the Star Trek canon occur. It's really cool. It's so cool, and it's totally free because it's a fucking it's a workshop. It's on Steam Workshop, and then also we probably all own Stellaris because it's been in a bunch of bundles.
Oh, yeah. No, I've played a few games of it for sure over the years.
If they tried to charge for it, CBS would be down their throat in a second.
Now, Paradox did just publish a Star Trek 4X game.
I do not.
It just came out. And apparently it sucks. It's getting terrible reviews. But also the rule of Paradox games is never buy them when they first come out because that's dumb. Because they have a shitty business model.
Wait, is that the one that like Bobby in our Discord was all about for a minute?
I don't know because I don't check the Star Trek channel a ton, but it just came out like earlier this month.
Yeah, I think that's the one he's talking about. It's more from his perspective. It's more story based, like what's it called, text based adventure kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where it's
a lot of the go ahead. A lot of the complaints I was seeing were like people basically saying things like this doesn't make sense for Star Trek, like the way it seems like it was made by people who didn't know Star Trek very well. They're like, all right, it looks like it. We got the ships and stuff. Cool, it's Star Trek.
Right. People were trying to merchandise it more than they were involved.
Be
with the
accurate
lore.
To the Star Trek, but then like you were saying just now, Guy. There was also people saying that basically it's a game where you wait for text pop-ups to show up and say that things have happened that are Star Trek related, and you're like, yes, that is Star Trek related. The fan mods are called ST New Horizons, and it's like on Steam Workshop they have collections, so you'll download like this collection of mods, and it has like what is it? Federation, Klingon, Cardassian, Dominion, Ferengi, Romulan, and Borg. And so you can be any of those factions. I think it changes the UI for each of them. It has custom music. It has voice acting. It replaces the built-in tutorial robot with Q, and he's voice acted. Now, it's by some random dude, so it doesn't sound like Q from the show, but like it's him, I will say that if you've never played Stellaris, probably play a tutorial game of Stellaris first, because it's like a more complicated version of Stellaris. So if you don't understand the base game, you're like, I don't fucking know what's happening. And Stellaris is very much a game where it's like you log in and it's like, okay, here's 17 pop-ups in a row. All of them, there you go. And then now you've got all these things to click on at the top. They've all got exclamation points. Now, once you've worked through all of it, it's fine and things roll in piece by piece. But like up front, when you're starting a new galaxy, it's like, oh shit, man. But yeah, I think Stellaris is gonna be the one I stick with. I'm enjoying checking out ST New Horizons. A couple of the mods are being a little goofy for me, so I need to figure that out. But I'm very excited to, because that was what I wanted. I was like, I kind of want like a Star Trek 4X where like combat is there, but it's not really my focus. I like the idea of exploring anomalies in space and doing that kind of thing. And that seems to be the game that is closest to it, despite the fact that a Star Trek 4X just came out, which seems weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all both like Star Trek. You should check it out. It looks cool.
I don't have Stellaris though, so I can't.
Really?
Can't check it out.
I probably have a free code. So if you ask in the Discord, someone has a free code. Everyone has Stellaris.
Right.
It's like it was in a bunch of bundles for a little bit, I think.
Maybe it was free on some other service that I did not have. I don't know.
It's given away a lot because Paradox is like all the DLC for it together is like $200.
Damn.
So that's kind of their business model where they're like, here's our game and it's going to go on discount real quick and get real steep, or maybe the base game will be free for a little bit. Anyway, you want the complete edition, it's $200, but look, we've discounted it to $99. And so that's just kind of their thing.
Yeah.
Saturn, what you been playing?
So, as of when we are recording this, it is just before Halloween.
Yes.
And so I did play around with some horror games this month, and I was kind of bouncing off a few, mostly trying to play some Fatal Frame, just because, it's spooky month. Mm-hmm. But Alan Wake's about to come out. Well, as of today, it did come out, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet because all the things came out. So it's got shifted itself to the back burner. So now my spooky month is going to be some other month. So instead, somebody very kindly got me Alwa's Awakening.
Oh Steam. Yeah, that was me. I bought
it.
You
was.
And Pablo's
I bought it, played it.
Yes, Pablo's Awakening.
I bought it and I played it and I was like, Saturn would like this. I'm gonna buy it for Saturn.
Yeah, it's Alwa or Alwa.
I'm saying Alwa's Awakening.
Alwa's Awakening. All right. So it's it's like a platform Metroidvania mixed with Solomon's Key.
Uh-huh.
And I'm digging it.
It's fun. It's real cute.
Yeah, and it seems fairly short too, which is nice. I'm ready for a not 1,000-hour game.
I like how slow it is. Like it's very slow and deliberate,
very methodical.
And so like it
that fucks
I don't
me
know.
Though. When games are that slow,
it can.
It messes with me because I try to start skipping steps once I've gotten familiar with things. I'm like, oh, okay, well now I can rush through the screen. That's a mistake. Do not do that.
Yup. I also picked up the sequel. I haven't played it. It looks like a much more robust game.
Yeah, I'll have to try that out when I finish.
I'm in like a bundle with Cathedral.
Nice. And then also my copy of Spider-Man 2 came in today. And before I even mention the game, I just want to take a second to thank Sony for their accessibility features in it because it is robust.
Okay.
It is incredibly granular and detailed in its accessibility, and there's some excellent stuff in there. You can make just the puzzle solving simpler and make the combat harder if you want, which is something Silent Hill's done for decades, but it's not something you normally see in action games like this. It's got a ton of assists, and the things that I was most impressed by, it has what it calls a midnight mode, which is where the difference in audio between the quietest sounds and loudest sounds is reduced so that you don't suddenly blow out your fucking speakers every time there's an explosion.
Yeah.
Which I wish every game and movie and television show would do this, because I am so tired of explosions being so loud and everything. And why do things have to explode so often?
My newest... I'm sure so many people have asked that question. My newest speaker system has a night mode setting that does that for any audio put through it. It's shocking to me that more things don't have it.
Right. And then also it has a dialogue-friendly mode for people who are just not good at hearing dialogue over sounds, where it will subtly reduce the volume of music and sound effects and increase the volume of dialogue anytime someone is speaking, which I'm a huge fan of this idea. Like, I wish every game and movie and TV show would do this, because I always have a hard time hearing people without turning on subtitles just because of all the background sounds. For some reason, my ears just can't process it right. But just a ton of just tiny little granular modifiers. And it's something Sony has been pretty good about this lately, and Microsoft has too. Not so much that third company, but
you mean the one specifically marketing towards small children who are less capable of playing games? Than,
right? Yeah, that
adults?
one. They seem less interested in accessibility options.
So bizarre.
But no, the game is good. I've only played through the tutorial area so far because my copy was delayed. So so far, I know that you do get to play as both Peter Spider-Man and his little brother Miles Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're brothers.
There's so much wrong with that statement.
Well, if they're not brothers, then why do they have the same last name?
Miles was Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's Miles Spider-Man.
Well, Miles was not
brother.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Was he not?
No, in the original
Ultimate
run of
Spider-Man?
Ultimate Spider-Man back from like the early aughts, that was still Peter Parker.
Yeah, he
I didn't
replaced
read
him later on in the Ultimate series.
Oh, is that what it was?
And then later he got brought into the regular series.
I didn't read it.
Now there's two Spider-Mans in New York.
And I would like to say that Sony
I assume the game is them fighting over who gets to keep the name Spider-Man.
No, they just keep calling each other Spider-Man, which makes the dialogue very confusing because you'll constantly hear, Miles Spider-Man say, "Watch out, Spider-Man," and you're like, "You are Spider-Man, dude."
That is weird. Why wouldn't they?
Like if they're talking internally with their little communicator system, they'll usually call each other Peter and Miles. But then, like randomly, one or the other will be like, "Watch out, Spider-Man," and I'm like, "Dude, which one of you said that?" In the subtitles, whenever they're in their costumes, list them as Spider-Man as their character name for both of them. But it has a little cute icon afterwards of whichever color they are, the red or the black.
That's something, yeah.
But it's such a tiny icon that you can't tell.
Still kind of odd. You think they'd rename one of them.
Right. You think they would just say Miles or Peter. Anyway,
they already have unique names.
I also would like to attack Sony on this, or maybe it was Marvel. I don't know who made this decision, but there's two Spider-Mans in this game. Why didn't they call it Spider-Men? It's right there. Come on, guys. If aliens could do it,
at least Spider-Man's.
Yeah,
do it alien style.
Exactly.
Anything. Fucking lazy is what it is. Exactly the kind of laziness I would expect from Sony Incorporated.
But it does start off.
One of my favorite spiders in the Spider Universe is Spider's Man.
There's a spiders. Does he have spiders?
No, he is made of spiders.
I don't like him anymore.
Yeah, like inside of his suit is like a million spiders that are acting as a person.
Gross.
I don't want that. I will give this game credit. It starts on a pretty solid joke, which I'm not going to spoil. But if you enjoy decent, goofy Marvel Cinematic Universe style humor, it does start with some decent writing of that caliber.
I've still never played the first Spider-Man.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty solid Spider-Man game. I like Spider-Man has never been one of my favorite superheroes. It was one of the Marvel comics that I would typically just skip past because I was more interested in X-Men and Avengers. But it's just a really good game. It's a really solid, well-built game with a lot of accessibility options. So
yeah. Guy, what have you been playing?
What have I been playing? I have no idea. Nothing really. I've been playing this week's game.
Okay.
But no, I was going to talk about in my week. Well, I guess two things now because while Saturn was talking, the Rangers won Game 1 of the World Series. So go Rangers!
Oh yeah, that was tonight. Yeah, I saw that on the news this morning.
They won in the bottom of the 11th.
I know this is derailing before we get into a show that is already about a very big RPG that's probably too big for a single episode.
Okay, dude. Are you going to sports at me again?
Let me ask you sports questions because I was talking to Courtney about this.
Oh, no.
And she was confused. She was like, well, so the World Series is tonight. And I was like, yeah. And then she's like, well, then it's over. And I was like, well, no. And she goes, well, they're going to play the World Series tonight. I was like, yeah, but the World Series is a series of games. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was just a game. And I was like, I think that's called the championship. And then she was like, all right. that makes sense, I guess. And she goes, isn't it already the championship? Because everyone plays each other to see who the best is. And I was like, no, I think like they all play each other and then the best people from all those different things do the World Series. But I don't know. But that's not my question. Although I'm sure you have a lot of things to correct. But I was watching the news this morning because, again, I'm old. And they were talking about how this would be the first Rangers World Series win in franchise history. Mm-hmm. And as far as I know, the Rangers as a sports ball team have been around for decades, at least. Yeah. At least, what, 50 years?
They came in 1962 from Washington.
And so they have never won the World Series in all that time.
Correct. They've been to the World Series twice in 2010 and 2011.
What the fuck they've been doing for 60 years, man?
Mostly sucking.
Just kind of seems like, is that common that there are teams that have never once won the big one?
I think there's probably 3 or 4 in every sport. Sure, yeah.
And with the a few years ago, didn't the Red Sox win the series for the first time in like 100 years?
Yeah,
I remember hearing about that one. And I remember thinking that's so bizarre.
And the Cubs too, for that matter.
Like, I just don't know that I could do something for 60 years and never win it and still be like, yeah, I'm going to keep going.
Well, the good news is that it's not one guy. Yeah, they change out pretty often.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. I just didn't know that. It was very, very, very curious to me.
In 2000,
growing up, like
in 2011,
everyone watched
they were one strike away from winning the World Series twice.
That's rough.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember like when I thought that the dude pitched it and the guy hit it to the outfield and it was like this lazy sort of like fly out to the left field or right field. And I remember jumping out of my shoes, and by the time I landed being sad because I realized the Rangers guy had misplayed it and it went over his head.
Oh no. That guy's got to be so upset. Did they kick him out of the team?
I mean, eventually, but not that year.
Like I feel like after that, they would have been like, all right, dude, that was the one, man. Like, someone has to be the scapegoat for this, and it's you, bud. Like, we were all looking at you.
On the other hand, they made it to the series that year, which is pretty good. That's still,
Yeah.
Yeah. They're one of the 2 best teams in baseball, those 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
I've been watching the news and listening to the radio lately because of some specific news events that have been going on that I've been following. And so I've been hearing about the people in Houston are very sad and people in Fort Worth are very excited. And it's all about baseball.
Yeah.
Why Fort Worth specifically?
Oh,
that's weird.
Probably because he's listening to Fort Worth news. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Probably. Yeah. I don't listen to anything from Dallas because that's like 2 hours away. It's so far. Cool.
Oh yeah.
It's your week.
Yeah, it's my week we're talking about. I'm sorry. Other than that, I met Ben Folds last week.
Oh. Now, is that a person?
Yes.
I'm aware of the musical group.
Ben Folds 5, which is a trio.
I didn't. Okay. Well, that makes less sense. I didn't know that was his name.
Yeah. His name is Ben Folds.
Is he the 5th?
What? No, there's just only 3 people.
He'd be the 3rd.
No. I was just thinking like maybe he is Ben Folds the 5th.
No.
Oh.
No.
His father was the 4th.
I think they just thought it was a funny joke.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that being wrong about numbers is a funny joke. I just didn't know that. I didn't know that was his name. I knew it was Ben Folds 5. I thought the folding was a verb in the name of the group.
No.
And he was folding 5 of something. And
what
I
are
thought
the 5
maybe it was like
he folds?
I thought maybe it was poker or something because sometimes you play 5 card hands of poker and you fold. And I thought it was like a poker thing.
I could see that.
I didn't know that was his name.
Yeah,
we went and saw him play in Tallahassee in April, and I think I made the joke, we're gonna go watch some guy named Ben fold some shit or something. I don't know. But yeah, no.
Little did you know that back in Texas, Justin thought that was a real thing you were going to go see.
Yes, I did.
Oh,
until this show's notes, I didn't know that was his first and last name.
Oh my God.
No
okay.
idea.
Well, yeah, no. Kristen, my wife, has been a fan of his for like 26 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we paid for the VIP package for like a question and answer thing, and then like pictures and a meet and greet sort of situation.
Yeah.
And we get up there, and she's like, thanks him for like 26 years of music and being really influential in her life and stuff like that. Sure, and he's like, oh, that's real sweet. And then he like looks at me, he goes, oh man, that's a really cool shirt. He goes, I can't wear colors really, but like if I could, that's the kind of shirt I would wear.
How did you not immediately go, yeah, you can. No one's stopping you.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't do that, but yeah.
Now I'm curious what shirt you were wearing.
Yeah.
It was it's the shirt I wore to my wedding reception. It was the hoverboards like button-up shirt.
I was expecting it to be like something grossly inappropriate that you couldn't talk about on the show for some reason.
Yeah, it said, you remember that time Ben Folds shot that dude in the dick?
It was his favorite Big Dogs t-shirt. And it's not cool anymore, so he can't talk about it. So
But yeah, no, it was a real special moment for Kristen. It was cool to see that and just, kind of interact with a sort of famous dude.
Nice.
I feel like those kind of meet and greets probably always feel really awkward to people.
Yeah.
But then, like everyone I've known that have done something like that, when they get up to the celebrity in question, they're always really cool about it because obviously they are because they've done it thousands of times and they know exactly what to expect,
Yeah. Like Kristen practiced for months, like, gearing herself up to not immediately cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Did she succeed?
Yeah. She cried like 5 minutes later. Took a moment and sat down on some stairs.
Nice. Yeah, I had a friend of mine got to meet Jason Mewes at a convention, and he was supposed to have the meet and greet with him, but then he ended up getting called into work, so his wife went and took his place. And
was she a fan of Jason Mewes?
She was vaguely aware of him.
That's weird.
So she brought all of his stuff and one thing from each of his friends to go get autographed. And Kevin Smith was also there, but they only got the chance for the meet and greet with Jason Mewes, and so she brought all this stuff and like afterwards, she met us when we were all leaving work at a restaurant or something, and my friend who was supposed to be there was like, "What's he like? What did he say?" And she's like, "He just talked about my chest the whole time."
That sounds about right.
And the rest of us were like, "Yeah, that sounds on brand."
That seems accurate.
All right.
Let's do the news. First up, a Shiba Inu named Peanut Butter is running Gyromite at AGDQ 2024. I'm glad you didn't say playing, because if I can have some beef with Peanut Butter,
yeah,
as he's known, technically Peanut Butter is not playing the game. A human is playing the game with Peanut Butter as his controller, because he tells Peanut Butter what buttons to push.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's fair.
But it is still terminally cute.
What is Gyromite? AGDQ. I think I know what 2024 is.
All right, so let's spell all this out. So a Shiba Inu is a breed of dog.
Yep, peanut butter is a food item.
Right, but also the name of the dog.
But also the name of the dog.
Gyromite is one of those NES games that had the robot, Rob.
Oh, okay.
So he's basically replaced Rob with a dog.
Exactly. So he's replaced, instead of Rob, he's going to have his dog perform the actions of Rob, and AGDQ is Awesome Games Done Quick, which is a annual charity marathon where people speedrun video games.
Yeah.
And in this situation, a dog speedruns a video game.
Yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
In Saturn news, the world's oldest dog died.
Oh.
What?
I did hear about that.
Why would you tell me about this? How old was he?
38 or something? Oh, dang.
Was he 28 or 30? You guys don't even have your stories straight. I don't trust you.
I just skimmed the article. I don't remember it. I'm a trust guy on this.
Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 Switch release features only the NES and MSX games on the cartridge, which account for 2 megabytes, if that.
Yeah, it was 10 megabytes total.
All other games are downloaded. Also, EU copies only run in PAL mode at launch, was later corrected in a post-release patch. Also, the subtitles on the bonus content videos had incorrect timing, to be patched later. Also, the game has weird slowdown on all platforms, to be patched later. And also, code in the game references MGS4, Ground Zeroes, and Phantom Pain, hinting at a possible inclusion in a Volume 2. So here's the thing. They've re-released these exact games many times before.
Yes.
So how did they fuck it up this bad?
It's so my favorite part is that MGS1 is just a straight up PS1 emulation. It's not a port. They could have ported it They have the PC port that they could have used as a base. They didn't.
But they didn't.
They just did a PS1 emulation, and they just chose whatever that region's version was and released that. So the PAL release got the shitty old PAL 50 hertz version, which apparently doesn't run great.
Digital Eclipse is right there. They have worked with Konami before. Why?
I don't
Why?
You can't expect them to divert resources from their pachinko division, sir.
Right? Maybe this was meant as a specific fuck you to Hideo Kojima.
Maybe. They're like, yeah, not only are we going to release a shitty game after you leave, but here, we're going to release shitty versions of all your other games.
Yeah, we're going to shit all over your games first and then let people buy them.
That's the most dickish torture move ever.
Big layoffs at several divisions within PlayStation Studios and Embracer Group. Oh, boy. Remember when Embracer Group was trying to tell us that they were bastions of game preservation,
right?
And we should be celebrating them as a community because they had a bunch of games in a big fucking vault,
right? As they were buying up all these studios.
Yeah, anybody remember that? And now they're just shutting down studios that make games.
I think we also saw some layoffs at Paradox this last. I think I heard about. Maybe that was before the last episode. I don't remember.
Frasier Fantasy is a new Game Boy Color JRPG based on the 90s sitcom, based on, I believe, a meme.
Yes.
And it is now a functioning game that you can play.
If I remember right, it was based on a meme that was based on a throwaway line from a British sitcom.
From what I understand, it's better, at least, than the new Frasier TV show, which is supposed to be not good.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
So
I heard like a person say it was good.
Oh, you found the one.
Sample size of 1, so we'll see where it goes.
And so far, it's
Ambernick
20
announces
million to 1. So
right.
Announces RG ARC or ARC handheld that has Sega Saturn style controls, which is exciting to me.
It looks really good too.
I want more of this. Right. And finally, Dragon Quest X offline to get an Asia region release, which may be available in multiple languages, which maybe English could happen.
So there is a rumor. First of all, it is supposedly coming out in Asia early next year. Mm-hmm. And in the past, the English release of any Dragon Quest game on Switch is handled by Nintendo in Western territories, not by Square Enix. And Square Enix only announced this Asia region release. So if it was also in English, maybe they are waiting for Nintendo to announce it for a Western release if it is coming out in the West.
Yeah.
So it's still a up in the air. It could happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Saturn not holding his breath, brings us to our topic at hand this week, which is Baldur's Gate 1.
Oh, sorry.
It does say title, but we're doing Baldur's Gate instead. Yes. We pivoted at the last minute.
We pivoted away from title.
We wanted you to be as bored as possible. This is also, is this the third giant RPG we've done in like a month?
Yeah, something like that. Because we did Chrono Cross and Sea of Stars and now this.
I just want
hate
everyone,
free time.
I just want everyone to, this whole recording, because I played this game like a month ago and wrote all the notes for it.
Yeah.
And the lead up to this recording night, because we were also doing Hidden Turds, because it's just easy and we chill and we don't have to do as much work.
Right.
And leading up to this show, I kept sitting around being like, I need to be doing something. I know I need to be preparing something or something. So let me just say, as really, for me anyway, this is our last show before the holiday season kicks off with Halloween. I hope you enjoyed us covering lots of big RPGs for a little while there. And I hope you can tide yourself over till the new year because, you know, you're welcome. That was it. It's going to be a couple months.
Really, the earliest you're going to get is February after like recording and delays and prep time.
Realistically.
Anyway, next week is going to be all of the Dragon Quest games.
Yeah. Well, no, we had Xenogears up first.
Yeah, right.
No. We're going to do the PS2 Xenosaga games.
Yeah, all three Xenosagas.
I did start playing the dot hack games, and I was like, "What am I doing?" I stopped myself.
I remember you messaged me about that, and I was like, "What? You would hate that. Why are you doing this to yourself?"
I was playing them, and I was like, "No, free time."
I never played them because I thought I had to have an internet connection. I didn't have internet that would connect to a PS2.
It just pretends you do. It's
just a pretend internet.
MMO.
You only need a pretend internet connection for that game.
I was a naive 20-something-year-old, all right?
Oh, wow. As far as synopsis, what if D&D were a video game? Not like the Gold Box games, but like a better video game than those.
I like those.
Baldur's Gate released December 21st, 1988, came out on Mac in the year 2000.
1998.
What did I say?
You said 88.
1980. It's very old. Right after the Civil War, Baldur's Gate
No, 1988,
won.
not 1898.
Look, I don't know. I thought you said I said 1888.
Yeah. The Civil War had ended by 1988. Just spoiler. We had already moved on from Civil War.
Are you sure?
We had already moved into Alf territory by then.
Okay, so basically human history goes Civil War then Alf.
Correct.
So it's an easy confusion. Came out on December 21st, 1998.
Yes.
Came out on Mac in 2000. As far as first encounters, I have started and stopped Baldur's Gate 1 at least a half dozen times. Mm-hmm. And I still maintain that it doesn't much feel like D&D in practice. And the constant clicking around on the interface has always kind of wore really thin for me. Mm-hmm. It just makes it feel kind of tedious. But so there's something about the objectively inferior Switch port that has no multiplayer, greatly simplifies your input methods, adds tedium elsewhere but removes tedium in movement, that stuck with me this go around, and I made it through the whole game and had a really good time with it. But it is a game I've started and stopped many, many, many times before getting through the Switch port. What about you, Saturn? Have you played Baldur's Gate?
I have.
I
haven't finished it, but I've played it. Especially back in the 90s and early 2000s, I would go in and out of whether or not I wanted to even try PC games.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early 2000s, there was a period where I was like, I'm gonna try to play more PC games because I got a bunch of friends that are big PC game fans that don't play console games at all, and I want to see what they are seeing and experience what they are experiencing. And so I would ask them, like, what is the game of this genre should I try? And it's how I found things like Civ and StarCraft and all these other games that I love.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend Doug at the time. I was like, so what's a RPG that I can play on PC? He was like, well, you have to play Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay. And so I can't remember if he burned me copies or if I bought them used at EV or whatever happened. But so I acquired some copies. And I installed Baldur's Gate. And I remember getting like 10 minutes in. I was like, this is just Diablo with more text. And I know.
Not even wrong.
Yeah, I could see it.
And so I kept trying it for a while, and I couldn't get anywhere. And it was one of those games where every couple of years I'd be like, I'm going to try it again. Maybe now my brain has evolved to the point where I can handle one of these PC RPGs, and I've never gotten very far in it.
Yeah. Guy?
Well, about 3 weeks ago, you reached out to me and said, hey, I want to make life easy for Saturn for a minute. You ever thought about playing Baldur's Gate? So I downloaded it on PC and clicked around.
I know you've been enjoying the third game, so it makes sense that you would enjoy the first game.
Yeah, I'm going to get more into that in final thoughts. But but like...
Are you saying that game design might have evolved over 25 years?
Impossible.
It may have, but like playing the PC version was annoying as shit. So after about a week of trying to play the game, I think I got like to the first town after the intro or whatever. I was like, Justin, is there a good way to play this game? And he's like, yeah. So it immediately said Switch. Like it wasn't even like a hesitation.
Yeah.
So I downloaded it on Switch and started playing and It's better on Switch. It is better on Switch.
Movement is less tedious, which is a big part of the issues I had with the PC port. Yeah, definitely less tedious.
And I managed to get a little bit further into it before dropping the difficulty some more, and then really figuring out that this is the way to play it. Okay.
Oh, I started on like story difficulty or whatever. Like these, I know how tough these games are. I'm not playing them on normal difficulty. No way in hell.
Yeah, no, I tried it on.
Tilt all of the dice rolls in my favor.
I tried it on easy and was like going through things, and somehow ended up with a party of like 5 people and just dying immediately on a screen. So I was like, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
I will say, I have way more experience on Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance than I do on vanilla Baldur's Gate. But that's a completely different animal.
Very different game.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk development, and we kind of need to start with sort of the state of D&D games, because I think it's easy to look at where Western RPGs or CRPGs or D&D games have gone since Baldur's Gate, and feel like this one is kind of dated and not quite understand the acclaim that it had when it came out. But I think when you look at
I always thought this was considered one of the pivotal D&D games.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Oh.
And I think the reason it was, a lot of that has to do with the state of D&D games and what Infinity Engine introduced into that mix. So we have the original Gold Box series of D&D games that ran from 1988 all the way through 1993. We have the Eye of the Beholder game series, which was 91 and 93. We have a few weird games, which is like Dungeon Hack, which was randomly generated, procedurally generated first-person dungeon crawl. There was the occasional action game, like Al-Qadim, The Genie's Curse, which came out in 94 and is actually pretty fun. There was a brief MUD in 1996 called Toral MUD. And then you had Interplay put out a few games. Blood and Magic was an RTS in 96, and it is allegedly terrible. And then Descent to Undermountain came out January 15th, 98, which is same year as Baldur's Gate, which came out in December of 98. And it used the Descent engine. Right. It was notably worked on by Steve Perrin, who's the guy that did RuneQuest, among a bunch of other things. And looks awful and reviewed awful. So the state of D&D video games as of 1998, whenever Baldur's Gate was coming to the market, is that you had the kind of gold box style games, which were very dated feeling by 98. They're very simplistic. A lot of them don't really follow a ton of D&D rules. They don't very much imitate D&D. They're really just, a lot of them, first-person narrative-driven dungeon crawlers, and that's sort of what we had. And companies that tried to veer away from that, like Interplay, didn't meet with much success. Also, D&D as a property was in kind of a weird space here, because this is late 2nd edition D&D. And D&D, it really sort of reinvented itself with 3rd edition and with the D20 SRD. 2nd edition got a little hairy, and things got very financially dire for D&D for a little bit there. This particular game was started in 95 at BioWare, who previously worked on Shattered Steel, which was also published by Interplay, and was initially simply entitled Forgotten Realms. And for people that don't know, at the time, Forgotten Realms was not the default setting of D&D as a property. It was one of the many, many, many various settings that were available, but it was not considered the default one. And allegedly, it took 90 man-years to develop Baldur's Gate.
So 630 dog years?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
And this was famously and pivotally, like you said, Saturn, the first title to use BioWare's Infinity Engine, which would kind of go on to be sort of the de facto standard for CRPGs. All of a sudden, the older style of CRPGs were pretty much gone, and everything was trying to either straight up be Infinity Engine or some kind of copy or variation of it.
And from what I remember of the time, just seeing reactions from friends of mine who played a lot of PC games, was they did not realize this was going to be such a big thing going into it, just because it was another D&D game, also published by Interplay. They didn't really know the name BioWare at all. I don't even remember if it was on the front of the box or if it was only on the back of the box. So they had medium expectations going in and were, somewhat blown away with how well it was received and how well it turned out.
So it really it carried a lot. It carried a lot of weight in the kind of CRPG space, in the D&D space, in the D&D video game space.
Right.
It really, really did. And it was a really big deal. And again, just go back and play any of the Gold Box games. Play one of the 93 Gold Box games. Play Al-Qadim. See what you're dealing with, and then jump straight to Baldur's Gate. It is such a generational difference that that's what made it a big deal. In addition to, I think, spoilers for the end of the episode, being a worthwhile RPG, it really was head and shoulders, technology-wise, above every D&D game that came before it. It was massive. Presentation-wise, it uses fully rendered backgrounds and kind of a top-down isometric sort of view. And it's not really the most demanding game, but I do think it does a decent enough job of kind of representing things and characters on the screen. You can hold a button to highlight everything that's interactable, which I had to find and use pretty frequently, but that's pretty common for me and pre-rendered background games.
You can? God bless it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
I was like hovering over each individual person to like find the person I'm supposed to talk to.
No, there's a button you can hold.
Oh, God damn it.
It's very useful in games like this, especially games like this that have a lot of lighting effects where sometimes things are just too dark to see exactly what's happening. Right. Composer Michael Honig was a film composer with many movies under his belt by the time he worked on Baldur's Gate. The soundtrack here I think is well done and imparts a lot of atmosphere. I didn't find it to be the most memorable thing in the world, but I'm also very bad at remembering soundtracks in the first place.
I would agree with that. Like the atmosphere, I would call it atmospheric, right? It very much set the tone for the different locations you were in.
Yeah. Let's talk story, which is really kind of the meat here. Although there's definitely a lot more gameplay than pretty much all the previous D&D games. So after you make a character, which you get to sort of choose and customize as you wish with sort of standard D&D class options as of 2nd edition, you're dropped straight into Candlekeep and pretty quickly tutorialized and then sent out with your adoptive father, Gorion, who gets pretty much immediately killed by a mysterious armored figure, and then you're set about trying to solve Gorion's murder. You're sort of ejected out of the safe world of Candlekeep where you've been living and sent out to figure out who killed your adopted father, and that's sort of the kickoff of the story. The game quickly funnels you into Nashkel, where there's trouble brewing in the iron mines, and as part of the main story, you're sort of funneled toward the mines. You clear the mines of kobolds. You meet their half-orc leader, who was seemingly directed by an organization known as the Iron Throne. And then you're sort of sent off onto the next chase off into the woods, searching for what the hell the Iron Throne is and what they have to do with anything. Shenanigans ensue. The Iron Throne ends up having another operation in Cloakwood that you clear out next, which opens up the path to the titular city, Baldur's Gate. You clear that out, and you check on the Iron Throne's base of operations in Baldur's Gate, and you learn that there's an iron shortage in the area that has been intentionally fabricated by the Iron Throne. And then after revealing the conspiracy, the players are led to Duke Elton, who's the leader of the Flaming Fists, who, for people that aren't familiar with Forgotten Realms, the Flaming Fists are kind of like the police of Baldur's Gate, sort of ish, but also their own independent entity, but they're pretty much the cops. They do the investigations and whatnot.
Oh, they're not a band?
I don't know how... they're not a band. I don't know how far you got in the story.
I got to Cloakwood. That's how far I got.
Oh, okay.
But I did know when I got to Cloakwood, I was aware from the copious notes left by all of the henchmen that the iron shortage was manufactured.
Yeah, no, it hints at that pretty heavily. That basically you're trying to solve a murder and you're pretty much wink, wink, nudge, nudged into realizing there's some sort of a larger conspiracy going on in the area.
Yeah, I feel like
and the reason go ahead.
The first couple of hours that I played was like going north first and then coming back down to Nashville or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the next 30 minutes was spent on story mode, like just burning through the story.
And the reason we're not mentioning much in the way of characters is because it's all sort of optional.
Yeah.
Your party composition is optional. The people you choose to take with you is optional. It's all just sort of out there as far as what kind of companions you want to take. And there are a lot of companions, which we'll go over later.
I remember one of them had a hamster. That's all I remember about.
Yes, that was Minsk, who had a hamster. I forget his hamster's name.
Boo.
What was his hamster's name?
There's a magic card, Boo and Minsk.
Yes. Yes. Minsk had Boo, and Boo is not a regular hamster. Boo is a space hamster.
Now, story-wise, my friend who tried to talk me into this game, he always told me the story gets good once you reach Baldur's Gate, or right before then, or somewhere around there is when the story gets good.
That's when the conspiracy kind of starts to indicate that it is a big, important conspiracy of this fabricated iron shortage.
I never got anywhere near it, so I don't know if that's true or not. But I just remember that's what he always told me.
There's a good amount of hours of story leading up to Baldur's Gate that you got to kind of get through. That is, I want to call it kind of the introduction to the game, but it's such a large chunk of the game that it is just sort of like the first third, I would say, is you not directly heading to Baldur's Gate, but being very Baldur's Gate adjacent, and then eventually, finally having reason to head there.
Like, I'm sure we'll talk about difficulty more later, but if Saturn, if you are interested in the story, I would recommend story mode. Like it is such an easy mode that you can your decisions don't matter at that point, and you just fly through the story.
You can just kind of let your characters auto do everything. You can occasionally pick stuff, which is kind of what I do, but getting through the rest of the main story. And again, this is throwing aside all of the companion stories, all of the side quests, all of the side stories, all of the extra stuff. This is the most core of the main story that I can share without having to cover every possible pivot and side story that you may go through, because every playthrough is going to be pretty different. You've talked to Duke Elton. He gives the party a book so that you can go back to Candlekeep Inn to track down the Iron Throne leaders who have congregated there. They've taken over your keep. They've taken over your home. You go back to Candlekeep. You learn of the Baal Spawn, which are mortal harbingers of darkness created by the dead god Baal to bring about his return. So suddenly everything gets very cosmic. And you learn that you too are Baal Spawn, which is not a plot point that I realized the first way through. I don't know how I missed that dialogue, but I did. And so the end of the game made no sense, but I'll get there. So right after this, you get imprisoned for the murder of the Iron Throne leaders, whether you do it or not. I did it, but even if you didn't do it, you go to jail for it. Tetheril, one of the Candlekeep monks, pities you, frees you in the party, and reveals who the mysterious figure who killed Gorion was. And this guy knew the whole fucking time. I don't know why he couldn't just talk to him. It was Kovaris, a leader the party met earlier, who is actually named Saravok, which is Kovaris backwards.
What? All these names.
Wow.
All these names sound like they are either Klingon or Vulcan names. I'm just gonna say.
He was the adopted son of an Iron Throne leader. So then you bust out of prison with Tetherill's help. You return to Baldur's Gate to find it in turmoil. The plot for the iron shortage so that Kovaris or Saravok can become the new Duke is in place. So Duke Elton is sick. He's been replaced with Saravok. Saravok's going through this ceremony to become the new Grand Duke. Antics ensue. You track down the assassins Saravok tried to hire to kill the current Duke. You show up at Saravok's coronation, kill a bunch of doppelgangers, and then he runs away. So you prove the innocence of everything going on. You prove your innocence, the party's innocence. You pursue Saravok, and he reveals that he too is Baal Spawn, and thus your brother. And he seeks to resurrect Baal and become the new Lord of Murder, which is a serious title.
A totally serious title.
It's a real title the game says seriously. And at this point, I'm confused because I didn't realize I was a Bale spawn. And so he's like, "Yo, my brother, I'm the Lord of Murder." And I was like, "I am? What is the Lord of Murder?
Are we going to start a metal band?
Yeah, you sound like you're going to elbow drop me through a wooden table. This is the WWF name." And so you kill Saravok, you're hailed as a hero, and then nothing bad ever happens again for like 2 weeks. And then you go into the Siege of Dragonspear expansion content, which I did not play. So this is the chorus of the main story in a nutshell. And it's a bit of a ride, and it takes a little while to get going. But overall, I liked the beats. I do like that it was pretty simple. It's basically a tale of, sibling betrayal. I like that they kept it kind of nice and simple, and you don't really ever need to understand the details of the political plot that is the iron shortage to understand that it is bad and fake and made up.
Yeah.
Which was nice because I don't have the brain for that stuff. But overall, I liked it. I liked the story. It gets a little ridiculous at the end because you're in a room with Saravok, you fight him till he's about to die, and then he's like, "Oh, see you later," and you have to chase him through a literal maze. Takes like an hour. You're just in a maze. And then that's when he comes out and he's like, "I'm the new Lord of Murder," and you're like, "You're the what?" So that's the story. Let's talk gameplay.
Yeah.
Because we have to talk about the companions, because really they're kind of the other half of the story. So much of the story is rooted in the companions.
I do want to interject here because I forgot to mention it when we were talking about the presentation. One, the art style for the character portraits is excellent.
Oh yeah, it's very good. Very good.
And the art style for the actual characters themselves, like the little pixel art, it's so dumb but charming, and I love it.
It is. It's charming in a real stupid way.
Yeah.
So the story itself is mostly linear, but recruiting companions and completing side quests can be done in the order of your choosing or not at all. And it really makes up a lot of the gameplay because characters are going to all have their sort of character-specific side stories, and so they really comprise a lot of the story you're going to experience. Imoen is the first companion you encounter. She was also raised in Candlekeep as an orphan, as you were. And she sort of insists on coming with you early on in the game. And I would say that most people probably take Imoen. She's a rogue the first time, or pardon me, rogues aren't a thing yet. She's a thief. I imagine most people probably took Imoen. Guy, did you take Imoen?
I did.
Who else did you take? Do you remember?
The two dudes who take you to the north.
So Jaheira and Khalid?
No, those are the guys that you meet in the town.
You meet them at the inn, at the Friendly Arm Inn.
I took them, and then the first couple of people you run into who want to go south, the wild mage guy.
Oh, Zan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Zan, and I don't remember the other dude's name.
No.
It was Zan and
I don't know this name.
Someone else.
And then I tried to take some dude, and everybody got mad at me.
Who was it?
I don't know, some dark elf or... No, he wasn't a dark elf. He was a orc, half orc. I don't know, some guy that showed up and he was I'm all about honor, and then everybody was like, "Oh, we don't like you."
Oh, yeah. God, what was that guy's name? I took him.
Worf. Right.
Yeah. It was
Worf.
and he was all about, he's like, "I will get my revenge," and he's all like blood and thunder all the time.
Yeah, that guy. So like I picked him up and then like immediately dropped him because everybody got mad.
He was my buddy. I liked him the most. Everyone else could fuck off.
Yeah, you always liked him.
Dismissed Imoen.
Who was the character you liked? Who was the character you liked the other day? Who was like he's like an evil character. You're like, yeah, no, but that's my buddy.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. What were we talking about?
A game at some point. I don't know.
I don't know. I like evil characters. I think I like evil characters a lot because they just tell you what they're going to do and how they feel. Yeah. There's no ulterior shit. There's no backstabbing later. They're just like, "Oh, I'm a bloodthirsty maniac." And you're like, "Oh, good. Well, I'll treat you as such."
Oh, it was the Gith Yankee lady from Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, Lae'zel.
Yeah.
She's my love interest in Baldur's Gate 3, and she's the main character of the game. I don't care what anybody fucking says. Lae'zel is great. She's very mean to me, but she's my favorite.
Oh man, I was playing. Sorry, tangent, but I was playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I finally got to a scene where she was like, "So do you want a bone?" And I was like, "Well, not now." And she's like, "Fine, never." And I was like, "Oh, my options went away."
Up. She's Githyanki. You get one chance.
That's dumb.
There are 24 companions in total. We cannot go through all of them. I've not played with all of them. I don't even know who half of them are.
I need to hear more about the hamster guy.
So here's the thing. Minsk is a ranger, and he has a hamster named Boo.
Okay.
And Boo is a miniature giant space hamster.
I'm okay with all of this.
So, of course, everyone else in the game, and the assumption of the game is that Boo is a regular hamster, because what is a giant space hamster? But in the D&D mythos, there is actually, in Spelljammer, a giant space hamster. And they are hyper-intelligent, and so Minsk claims that Boo is a miniature version of a giant space hamster. Of course, Boo only manifests as a regular hamster to us. So,
but is he super intelligent?
That remains to be seen. Okay. Now, Minsk relies on Boo and talks to Boo, and they have a very special relationship, but you never have a relationship with Boo.
Aww.
And so I don't know if in the game it's ever revealed whether or not Boo is in fact a miniature giant space hamster. I think it's just sort of left up to interpretation, at least in the first game, maybe the second game, because Minsk is a companion in the second game as well. So maybe in Baldur's Gate 2 it's revealed a little bit, but I did not see any indication that Boo was anything but a normal hamster. But of course, that's what he would seem like were he a miniature giant space hamster. I think Minsk also suffered some head injuries. I think that's canon. So, take that for what you will. But yeah, Minsk is very much a favorite companion within the game, and he got very much fleshed out in the second game.
Nice.
And so he kind of became a poster child for Baldur's Gate in general. Navigation is done in map screens and kind of air quotes, where moving to any edge allows you to select your next destination from a map that lets you go to anywhere else you've been. Of course, the screen is bigger than the viewable area, so there is scrolling as you move around this zone. So it's kind of zoned, I guess, is the more accurate way to say it. But what this means is that entering a new zone necessitates several minutes of clicking and discovering the map itself.
Yeah.
And in the wilderness, this makes sense because, you're in the wilderness, you don't know what's on the far side of the forest, and you have to sort of explore your way through it.
Right.
But in town, and especially in a town, because Baldur's Gate is multiple map zones. I think it's 6.
Damn.
So just knowing where things are is kind of one of the great hurdles of the game. Yeah. But once you've kind of unlocked the full map, traversal becomes pretty trivial. But the idea that you would be in a town and you couldn't easily be like, hey, where is the blacksmith? And so, they should just, when you enter a town, they should just give you the whole town map, is my opinion.
You would think.
Because you're in a town, and presumably, within the canon of the game, you would walk up to people and be like, hey, tell me about your town. They'd be like, well, that's this thing, this is that thing, and that's that thing.
Like, I could understand if, you were a wanted criminal or
right,
if you couldn't just talk to people.
So it gets a little tedious. And, Guy, this is what you were talking about, is just traversal in the game, highlighting all your characters, clicking onto a spot. So what happens for me is I'll be like, all right, I need to go to this part of the map. So I'll highlight all my characters, and I open the map screen, and I click to where I need to be, and that takes my view screen to that area. And then I click to move my characters there, and then I'm staring at a blank screen while I wait for them to enter view, and then the area is accessible.
That's another thing that's a pain in the dick. Selecting your characters constantly, because when you're going through and doing inventory management and stuff, you end up selecting a character. So then in order to move your characters again, you have to go through and select all your characters, and there's a select all button, but having to do that multiple times in a given area is annoying as hell.
just managing your whole party and moving your whole party around is kind of tedious. On the console ports, they give you Diablo controls and a button to auto-select your characters, and it makes all of your characters just sort of whip around behind you and follow you like in a Dragon Quest game or something.
Nice.
It's still tedious,
and it makes
though.
traversal... It's still tedious. It's a lot less tedious.
Oh, is it?
Also, it means that it was for me. I found it to be way less tedious than just staring at a blank part of the map and waiting for my characters to walk over to it. Now, granted, I'm still having to wait for my characters to move through a map, but the activity of getting to control them with a control stick makes it feel more interactive, I guess. I don't know. It just bothered me way less getting to move them like that.
Yeah, no, my is it question kind of comes from my lack of experience because I got like 2 or 3 party members before I quit the PC version.
Yeah. The PC version I still find to be very tedious. The being able to move with a control stick that's vastly superior. I greatly enjoy it. Now, not having a keyboard and mouse available makes some inventory management a little bit more of a pain, and kind of some assigning some stats and screens, but you're not spending most of your time doing that. You're spending most of your time moving around. Yeah. So I guess I didn't mind the trade-off. I would be curious if like hardcore Baldur's Gate fans found the console ports unplayable or not. I found them to be dramatically more playable to the point that I'm annoyed that they've not backported the console controls to the PC versions of the Enhanced Edition.
I would say a large portion of your time is spent talking to and fighting assassins, but maybe that's just my experience.
There's less assassins as the game goes on, but still a sizable amount of assassins. There is also a lot of talking, for sure.
Well, you would expect there to be a lot of assassins when the Lord of Murder is around.
Right. Yeah.
That's his whole thing. He's the Lord of it.
It just seems like every other screen, some like little like kid would run up to me and be like, "Hey, are you this guy?" And I'd be like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna murder you anyway."
In the early game, you do hit like they pepper like 3 or 4 assassins in a row, and I think part of that is to kind of teach players, and this is just me totally guessing. I think it's kind of to teach players that, like, hey, you cannot trust NPCs in this game to be who they say they are and to have altruistic motives just because they say they do. And I do think it's kind of an important lesson to learn, because I could see someone that has played a lot of RPGs but never played one where you can't necessarily trust everyone. Right. That's kind of a teaching moment. So I do think they layer it on a little thick, and like you're saying, it's a little rapid fire. To the point where you're like, is everyone going to try to kill me? But I do see it as a teaching moment where they're like, hey, characters in this game will betray you, will lie to you, will backstab you. You should be aware of the level of trust you do or don't place in characters. Which I do think is a very D&D thing to bring into the game, honestly.
Let me ask, since you're on that point, how many dragons are in this game?
What a fantastic question, Saturn.
Uh-huh.
There are less dragons than there are dungeons.
Because I was remembering that you mentioned at least one dungeon that you get locked in.
Yeah, there are dungeons.
I don't recall you mentioning a single dragon.
I will remind you that the game does not say Dungeons and Dragons in the title.
That's true.
The game is entitled Baldur's Gate because they preempted your pedantry.
How kind of them.
It does use a modified version of the AD&D second rule set here. Mm-hmm. The characters have AI, and the enhanced editions have very, very balanced AI, so you don't really need to understand the rules of the game to progress at all.
Yeah.
Especially on story mode difficulty. The most crucial skills are kind of reading character proficiencies and equipping them appropriately. Mm-hmm. So being able to look and say, all right, they're proficient in short swords, so I'm going to give this guy my +1 short sword. And then it will also show you how their damage properties change when you equip the sword. So it's pretty easy to kind of figure out, hey, who should be equipped with what. But if you don't want to interact with the AD&D 2nd Edition rule set, which I don't blame you, you really kind of don't have to with the AI. Even leveling up characters, I never found, granted it's hard for me to really evaluate because I'm so entrenched in D&D. I never found it to be too complicated. It's usually things like, hey, you've got skill points and you have a skill that's called longswords and a skill that's called bows. Where do you want to put your point? And you can kind of figure out pretty easily that, like, hey, I want this guy to use longsword, so I'm going to put a point in longsword. It does use THAC0 to hit rolls, damage rolls, and descending armor class.
Can you tell me what that means?
THAC0 stands for to hit armor class 0. In original D&D, or not original, in AD&D first edition, to determine whether or not you hit a creature, you would roll a d20 and add any modifiers you might have for whatever reason, and then you would tell me the number you rolled, and I would compare that number to a chart that cross-references the power of that monster, the power of that character, to determine whether or not you hit.
Okay.
They were called attack matrices.
That
In
sounds
second
very
edition,
complicated.
they simplified the math so that you would have THAC0. So you would calculate this all with THAC0, and you never had to consult a matrix. It's basically a formula. You tell me what number you need to roll. So if your THAC0 is 19, what that means is if you roll a 19, you can hit an armor class of 0. So if the creature you're attacking has an armor class of 0 and you roll a 19 or a 20 on a d20, then you hit it. Easy enough, right?
Sure.
What if it has an armor class? What if it has an armor class of 2? Well, then you would subtract 2. So you would need to roll a 17 or higher to hit on an armor class of 2, because higher armor classes are worse.
Oh, I see.
It is called it is descending armor class. So the lower the armor class, the better, and it can go into negative numbers. So if you have a THAC0 of 19 and you need to hit a -2 monster, then I would then flip it to a +2, and I would add 2 and say you need a 21 to hit a -2, which is, as you can see, impossible on the face because -2 is a very good armor class. So all I'm saying is there are some foundational elements of AD&D 2nd Edition that are present in this game that are kind of confusing, like THAC0 and the idea that lower armor is better, which is kind of confusing to the regular human brain. And someone who's like Saturn, I feel like if I was like, hey, this game has armor class, you might imagine that, oh, well, that means that's the number is how good my armor is, right? You'd probably automatically assume that higher is better.
Right.
Yeah, well, you're wrong.
Yeah, just tell people it's got golf armor.
Right. I would also naturally assume that THAC0 is a children's character.
Uh-huh. Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you don't need to understand THAC0. The game does use it. It shows you your THAC0, but you don't ever need to understand how it works.
I want you to see my THAC0.
I see your THAC0.
Oh, no.
You see everyone's THAC0. But I think descending armor class is probably the most confusing holdover. Because when you're looking at your armor and you're putting on better armor and your armor class is getting lower, I could see new players being like, what the fuck is happening? So something worth mentioning. Gameplay itself consists of selecting one or more characters for movement, interacting with each character's action bar for actions, and kind of directing characters to various enemies. It's a pause play mechanic where you can pause the game whenever you want and then press play and your characters will carry out the actions you've kind of queued up. And I do think that the fact that you can only assign a single action at a time kind of sucks and dates the game a little bit. It also means that whenever you unpause the game, your characters begin doing stuff. So you don't get to, like, move a single character where you want. So, like, let's say, for example, you're trying to line up a character to specifically cast an area of effect spell, and then you place it where you want it, and then you unpause, and then one of your characters moves in to attack someone into the area of effect. That sucks. I do think it's very, D&D of the game to do that, but also not fun or enjoyable. Also, some of the spell effects last for way too long.
Like the root effects?
Yes. There are others that are worse, But there is a tangle effect that will have roots grow up and hold characters in place, which, cool, that's a useful spell. I think Jaheira has it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, once you cast the spell, or an enemy casts the spell, even after death, the spell continues. And so then you trying to move through this tangled area means your characters get caught in the tangle, and then you just have to stand there until the spell expires.
No, the worst one
out
was
of
like
combat.
web or whatever that the spiders use.
Oh my god, yes.
Because it deselects your characters too.
For being a modified version of the AD&D 2nd Edition rule set, I feel like the thing they could have better modified is greatly reducing the duration of spells. Or at least determining that if you're out of combat, the spell duration should be greatly reduced. Because, yeah, there were areas where I was just stuck in webs. Or there were combats where there would be web and vines.
Oh, my God.
And I would just have to set the game down for 5 minutes and wait for all the spells to dissipate. The game does kind of rely on each character's script, which is basically their AI that you can toggle or change. It calls them scripts in the game. It pretty much means that the character will, unless disabled, act of their own accord without your input at all in combat, which does reduce the tedium of assigning each action in combat with multiple rounds of pausing and unpausing, which feels like I feel like playing this game without the AI would be tremendously tedious and frustrating. And thankfully, the AI only kicks in if a character can see an enemy, but it also hurts you. So, for example, if I'm running down a corridor and I see an enemy and I run over to attack them, if my person at the back of the column of my party can't see that enemy, they'll just stand there because they don't see them.
Yeah,
so they're just going to switch again.
Whenever it auto-paused, I would automatically make the whole party move up to the enemy.
Yeah, that's kind of what you have to do. The problem is then your first action is moving there, and then the people on the front of the column spend precious seconds standing there waiting for everyone else to get there, and then you start assigning actions. It's just not very fluid.
Yeah, that was my problem in easy mode too, because then like my casters and my thieves and stuff would just be like swinging away with sticks and knives and just get murdered.
Right. It's one of those systems where you become accustomed to its intricacies and its flaws, but you do have to become accustomed to the intricacies and flaws. And there are just some limitations of this style of not turn-based, but kind of turn-based. Like you can pause it, but then when you unpause it, everything fucking moves, and it's a hard balance to strike. I think later games do it much better, and I can see the seeds of the later games improving on this design here, but it feels pretty tedious here. Combat can get real tedious real fast, to the point that I do really wish they modified the AD&D 2E rule set quite a bit more than they did. I think there are a lot of D&D rules changes they could have put in here, like character awareness. Like in D&D, yeah, if you're down at the end of the hallway and I get into a fight with a guy, you won't necessarily see or hear me. And in a role-playing situation, that's an enjoyable encounter to have. It's a problem to solve as a party. But in a video game, I'm not paying attention to the line of sight of 6 different characters. I've got my front guy, my main dude, and he's running along. I think they could have easily been like, hey, if one character sees something, let's assume all characters see something.
Right.
Inventory management is also tedious. Guy, you kind of alluded to that. I think it's kind of on par for the time when the game released, but that's just kind of saying that there's lots of meticulous moving of items between characters and worrying about encumbrance and how much am I carrying. And I do really wish there was like a shared inventory. I don't know how annoying the inventory got for you, but it was tough for me.
Well, it's pretty. It's also kind of like, I don't know. It was intermixed with with my problem with character selection too.
Yeah, kind of the interface in general.
Yeah, where like in order to move stuff around, you have to select individual characters, which means that then you have to go and select all characters to start moving again. But also, like, you have to move, like you were saying, you have to move individual items around, and then go back and select, like, if you want a character to learn spells, you have to go select that specific character and then go to their spell book and learn the spell or whatnot. And it's a whole, rigmarole.
It is. It's one of those things that, like, for the era that it came out, the level of complexity they were able to put in this game compared to earlier attempts at D&D video games is staggering. And it makes me not forgive, but maybe be a little kinder to some of the tedium that the game has. But there is a lot of tedium.
I mean, I did like
it's
that
a pretty solid amount of it.
When you loot everything that's on the screen.
True.
Or everything that's
nice.
within range of the character that you currently have selected, I guess. But
yeah,
but it did get to a point where I'm just scrolling through the loot table and just grabbing the gold and bandit scalps or whatever,
right,
and ignoring just all the armor and all the weapons and all the all the other stuff, because there's no way that I want to go through and try and give those to different characters to carry it around so I can go sell it.
There was a lot of times where I would see item upgrades that were very marginal, and I would do the same thing. I would ignore them because I just don't want to fuss with the inventory.
Yeah.
Let's talk reception before we get into our thoughts on it, because this was a revelation in the realm of D&D video games. It didn't demand a deep understanding of the rules to casually enjoy. It was much more action-oriented than the Gold Box games. Initially, it had really low sales expectations, but it was obviously an instant success. It was favorably compared to Diablo. It was hailed as the greatest D&D video game of all time. And even people that didn't seem to like it in reviews kind of indicated that there was something compelling about this experience. There was something interesting here.
Yeah.
It currently holds a 91 on Metacritic, received a 94 from PC Gamer US, and won just a pile of awards.
Oh yeah.
It was a resounding success that is continuing today.
And it was one of those things where if you knew people who were into PC games at the time, it was that one game that they would recommend to everyone.
The enhanced edition,
it, like, as far as its influence on the genre, I mean, you can see it today, right? Like,
right,
pretty much every CRPG has the same style to the point that, like, I didn't even realize that, before we started talking about this episode, that it was different before this point, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a pivotal moment just from that perspective.
Yeah.
I think that a thing you give up in the transition from, like, Gold Box era D&D to Baldur's Gate is control. I never really felt fully in control of all 6 of my characters. And part of that was the kind of pause and play mechanic of bouncing back and forth between everyone running around doing shit and everyone frozen and nothing in between. The inability to queue up multiple actions, for example, or to really strategically orient my characters without just getting my face bashed in while I'm trying to do it. The scripts and the AI alone, I feel like you give up a level of control, a level of granularity you have in lower to the ground games, Gold Box games, where you are controlling every single thing every single character does. And I think that's both a thing I don't like and also a triumph of the game. The idea that you don't have to meticulously control 6 players, and really you kind of can't. It's really hard to, given the mechanics available to you,
right,
that you sort of, in I know that this was not the intent, but in a metagame sort of way, feels kind of D&D-esque, where you're kind of like, I don't know what the other character's going to do. I know what they generally are supposed to do, but I don't really know how it's going to play out. Now, obviously, it's different because they're video game characters, and if they're generally, when video game characters that I'm supposed to be controlling are not doing things I want, it's upsetting to me. At an RPG table, it's fun. There was the enhanced edition. It's the version I played. Guy, I assume it's the version you played.
Yep.
This was 2012 Overhaul Games released Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, which introduced a ton of changes. They added cross-platform multiplayer. They added a standalone gladiator arena mode called the Black Pits. They added the story difficulty and the Legacy of Baal difficulty. They completely overhauled the UI. They give higher resolutions. There was a new renderer. There are mod options. It was ported to everything everywhere. It's on Android. It's on Linux. It's on Switch. It's everywhere. There was an expansion, Tales from the Sword Coast, that came out the following year. Baldur's Gate 2 Shadows of Amn was released in 2000 and improved the design of Baldur's Gate 1 a ton while using still the same Infinity Engine. Obviously, Planescape Torment was Infinity Engine. Icewind Dale was Infinity Engine. This started the Infinity Engine line of games.
Right.
Baldur's Gate 3 just came out, and some people like it, I guess. You know, it's a thing you can play. You can have it.
I hear it's almost porn.
It's there's a lot of banging, but it's tasteful banging.
Oh, tasteful banging.
I stand by that. All the banging is pretty tasteful. It's good cinematic banging. It's not just
it's art house banging.
It's not just Kratos intro to God of War where he's just slamming people in a bed.
Yeah,
it's much.
That's
more,
aged pretty hard, hasn't it?
It's much more tasteful than that. I love that the guy that we're watching have this father-son adventure was also the guy slamming random women in the opening to, what was that, God of War 2?
Yeah.
I think it was the first one, wasn't it?
Was it the first one?
Was it like,
I think they waited till the
I think it was
second one to
between
do
levels that he bangs people in the first game.
that. As far as final thoughts.
Yeah.
I think compared to Baldur's Gate 2 and later Infinity Engine games, Baldur's Gate 1 is a smaller, simpler, definitely less refined affair. I think it can feel really tedious at times. Traversal gets annoying. The pathfinding and AI can wear a little thin. But I still think the story and characters are engaging. The new difficulty introduced in the Enhanced Edition meant that I was able to easily experience the game all the way through. And I do think if you're interested in Infinity Engine games, it's worth starting here because the later games definitely make this one feel a little worse for wear. It's so I like, personally, I recommend play through this game on story mode, play the console port so you can use the controller controls, and it cuts out enough the tedium that I think there's enough enjoyable story here that it's worth checking out. And it wasn't very long. I think I did it in less than 20 hours, honestly. It was relatively brief. Granted, I didn't explore the backstories of 24 different companions. But just getting through the main story was pretty straightforward for me. And I had a good time with it. Specifically the Switch port. I've tried the PC port many times, but something about the Switch port was compelling enough to me to get all the way through it. What about you, Guy?
I think it's kind of clunky.
Me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But you know, I once I discovered story mode, and I was like, you know what? Because I started on easy mode, and easy was okay. You know, it was fine,
Yeah.
but like my characters kept getting wrecked, and I couldn't control it. You know, characters that I wanted to wait back, or you know, my casters, I wanted them to cast spells. You know, like an idiot, I guess.
You fool!
Right. They wouldn't, or they would cast them late, and so they would fizzle or whatever.
Yeah, it's
And I
really
was
hard to time things.
And I was just never able to get that balance. But once they switched to story mode, which is basically a you can't die mode, it got way easier and I was way more interested in what was happening because I wasn't stressed about you know, my one character dying, and I had so many like save scum reloads just because you know my 4 HP character would take a hit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It overall it is a fun experience, and I think I'm going to keep going through it just to see the story because it sounds engaging, and it is, you know, a piece of history in that way, and I kind of want to experience and see what it's about.
I think what I like about it is that story mode with the like controller controls, it's really more of a game that you watch.
Yeah.
in a way where like you just kind of run your party of dudes into their party of dudes, watch them kill each other, maybe assign some new equipment, and then run them into the next thing. And then eventually you hit dialogue and you talk for a little bit. And I think that's how I enjoyed the game, was more of a game that I watch than a game that I necessarily am getting really tactical with.
Yeah, and I would think the thing about like non-story mode is that it's expecting you to have more interaction with side stories and adventures in the individual towns that you run into, and so you're going to get better gear and higher levels and such. And there's not how do I put this? It's not presented in a way that's really intuitive. It makes you feel and like you were saying, funnels you towards higher content and gets you there faster than you're really ready for if you're not purposefully slowing yourself down.
Yeah. I think story mode makes the game so much more playable and enjoyable. I don't know how you could, like, surely people did, but this seems like, and it may be just that I'm spoiled by newer games, such a hard game to really tactically play. And that's coming from someone who has been tactically playing D&D for 2 decades.
Right.
You know, viewing this as a tactics game, it seems like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But as just a fun story where you watch your party of dudes smash into them and then they all die, it's pretty fun. With it.
Yeah, before I switched to story mode, I think I was at a point where I'm like, maybe I just don't like CRPGs. Because like,
yes, I could see that.
I've tried Paths of Exile. What's it? Pathfinder with the recent one that came out.
Wrath of Kings, I think, is the newest one.
Yeah.
Was that the first one?
No,
I don't
was
know.
the
There's
first
been
one.
2 of them.
I forget what the new one is. And then Baldur's Gate 3, and I kind of bounced off of all of them, but they had interesting, aspects that I kind of want to go back to, and just have gotten distracted by other stuff. But like in the middle of this, I was struggling with it, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe it's just CRPG is not my thing, and I'll stick with D&D, like tabletop.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've learned about CRPGs is that, and this is also, I guess, kind of getting into how I enjoy and how I personally run tabletop RPGs, is that I don't want a super crunchy tactical experience. I'm not coming to D&D for that. I don't enjoy that in D&D. If I'm sitting here in my weekly D&D game counting squares and like doing lots of math, I'm probably not having a great time.
Well, I'm sorry my wizard broke your brain.
Because that's going to be a worse strategy game experience than playing an actual strategy game. So I want to come to it for the story, for the silliness, for the fun, for obviously the community and the friendship as well. And I think
for the Lord of Murder.
For the Lord of Murder. Yeah. And I think having a D&D video game where it's very tactically focused, that's not what I'm in this hobby for. That's not what I enjoy D&D for. That's not why I'm here. I mean, you've seen how I run and play D&D games. I'm not a very tactical person.
No.
I like tactical games. I will play tactical games, but I'll play tactical games that are built from the ground up to be a tactical game. And I got to play this as a goofy, fun story game. And I think that's the way I enjoy CRPGs. I think that's what this experience taught me. Because I think I was in the same camp as you, where I kept playing them, but I was like, I don't think I like these because it's extremely tedious and tactical, and I really just want to like watch my dudes smash into their dudes, and that's kind of what I want.
Watch cool spells go off, yeah.
It's more like you get to watch 6 people play D&D and direct their paths as the game, or not D&D, Diablo, as the game sort of plays its little Diablo for you.
Right.
And then you go, yes, now do it with plate mail. All right. Very, very well.
Plate mail, yes.
I am surprised I didn't get more pushback from my description of Diablo, but with more text.
No, I think that's pretty dead on,
Because I used to always say that back in the day. I was like, these D&D based CRPGs that you guys keep recommending, they just kind of feel like Diablo, but a little crunchier. And my friends would get offended by that. They're like, no, Diablo is a much more light, arcade-like RPG. This is a much more adult experience.
Well, it's because now you have better friends.
I agree with that assessment as well, but they're also both still isometric fantasy medieval themed RPGs.
Where you click on things and make them happen.
Yeah, like I don't know how different. There's a toolbar at the bottom of both games. You drink potions.
Yeah.
I mean, the devil might be in Baldur's Gate. I didn't see him, but maybe he's there. I don't know. Someone's trying to become the lord of something at the end of it. Like, Diablo wants to be the lord of hell, and then this guy wants to be the lord of murder. And, it seems pretty similar to me, I think.
Yeah, basically the same.
I don't know. I guess, like, I agree with both of those assessments that, it's like Diablo the visual novel.
Telltale's Diablo.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you like bad takes on games, then we have Patreon, and you can listen to tons of those.
Oh, yeah, we got so many.
I was hoping you were going to say, if you want to be the lord of something.
If you want to be the lord of something, you can be the lord of the Retro Warriors by giving us your money.
That's what I did.
I guess that would make us the lords then, because usually the lords are the ones who receive the money.
No,
you can be the lord of giving us money.
Just act like that fake scam internet service and say that we've totally got a 1-inch square plot of land in Scotland, and we'll make you a lord.
It's on the moon.
Oh, you said scam internet service. I thought you were talking about AT&T again.
We do want to thank the following patrons for their kind donations. Guy, are you in on this?
I got the notes pulled up.
Nice.
I'll go third.
Starting with Dr. Jason Tharp.
And due 138, which implies that there were 137 other dues that didn't subscribe to our
maybe they
Patreon.
just wanted you to say do 138 times. Good luck counting that. Dilf Toast Esquire.
David Nethery.
David Allen.
Chris Forbes.
I've been saying Forbes.
Or maybe it's Forbes.
It could be Forbes. I don't know. Chris R.
Chris Hickson.
Brian Guido Hassin.
And Blackened are all the patrons we want to thank for giving us money so that we can tell them that Baldur's Gate is Diablo the visual novel.
And if we mispronounce your name, feel free to correct us.
Yeah.
We don't for 1 second pretend that we are the experts at pronunciation.
I feel like the best way to correct us is by changing your Patreon name to something where you're really offended that we mispronounced your name and then making us say that.
Yeah.
I think would be the best course of action. I think that's the thing to do. Anyway, God, thanks for being on the episodes.
Thanks, Guy.
Saturn didn't have to talk about D&D stuff.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
I tried to contribute from time to time.
You did. You were there. You were present.
I was technically here.
You
showed
laughed
up with
and
your hot
contributed
take, and then we both.
Yeah.
You showed up with your hot take, and we both just agreed with it. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing.
Finally, redemption.
I'm gonna text my friends right now. Hey, listen, you fuckers.
Hey, Doug.
I've had your number in my phone for 20 years for this moment.
Listen to this. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always,
Let us
Let us
cling
cling
together.
together.